Hey everybody, welcome to Bura. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what to do if you've been laid off because of COVID-19. Alright, welcome back. Before we start this video, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more content we can make. Remember that this channel doesn't do a Patreon, instead we sell our digital products down below. The more money that we get from the products that you buy below, the more content we can make. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about layoffs. Now, layoffs are generally a common thing in the labor force, but it can happen to anyone at any time, especially in the technological world that we live in today. So I say this to anyone in any kind of business, that technology can come for your job at any given time. Now, what's interesting about this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic is that there have been mass layoffs in areas that you wouldn't think that there would be mass layoffs. So the job losses you're seeing are social jobs, jobs where you have to see other people. And this is being done to make sure that we don't spread COVID-19 any further. The one reason why we have to social distance and self-quarantine is because we don't have any other tools to fight this virus. We don't have a vaccine and we don't really have a good cure yet. Curing viruses is very difficult, and getting a vaccine is going to be very challenging. The best estimate is 12 to 18 months, and that is lightning fast. It can take years to develop a vaccine. Now, because of the economic damage of this virus, they are going to rush it out. In fact, Bill Gates has just announced that he's going to build 7 factories to build a vaccine once a vaccine candidate is released. But that doesn't help you if you have been laid off. Now, one of the things that you have to remember in terms of any kind of job cycle, whether it's a pandemic or not, is that jobs will go obsolete and jobs will become more in demand and less in demand over time. And one of the things that you need to understand about this concept is that you can be replaced. Now, another thing that's going to happen is automation. Now, automation is going to take care of a lot of jobs. The more that someone is getting paid, the more incentive a company is to automate it. And in the world where there is a lot of monopolies, automation will absolutely be key. So you have to be prepared. So if you're a fan of this channel and you've been personally following me, I've always said that you always have to be prepared. And the next business cycle is anybody's guess, but one thing is for sure, you always have to be learning. You always have to be ahead of the curve in terms of the next job. Now, one of the easiest ways to do this is to learn a new technology and master it as quickly as possible, because new technology is coming out all the time. And once a new technology, like a new programming language, a new framework, something new comes out, there isn't any programmers that can actually build that kind of software or that kind of service. And if you can figure out a way to become a master at the new technology as quickly as possible, there is very little supply and you will be in the forefront. This is a very easy thing to do when it comes to finding a new job. So whatever the new biggest buzzword in technology is, if you can master that as quickly as possible, then you will be able to find a job. Now, it's really hard to do this for several reasons. Let's say you've been coding for a long time and all of a sudden that coding language is obsolete or is not in demand anymore. You have to learn a new coding language. And one of the things about learning a new coding language is that it is going to be very hard to do the same things that you naturally do. So let's say you've been a Java developer for 15 years and you need to learn a new programming language. Learning that new programming language is going to create friction, and that friction is going to be hard for you to personally deal with. Now, this happens all the time, especially in the technology world, because when technology changes, a whole bunch of different paradigms change. In addition, a lot of new technology has lots of bugs in it, so you can be a very good coder and all of a sudden you're in this new environment with lots of bugs, and that is also frustrating. So one of the things I highly recommend that you do, especially if you're a coder, is to constantly learn different environments time and time again. That way you're in the habit of learning something new. So you can do something as simple as build a game in Unity or Unreal, and if you do this, you'll learn a new programming language and a new environment. And that way, let's say your job is a Java developer by day and you dabble in Unity as a game developer at night, when you have to go to something else, then you will have the experience of learning something new. You should always be learning something new. In fact, the people who are really successful are always learning. So if you're a fan of this channel, please like and subscribe, and you'll know that I always say that success is a wheel. You constantly have to be working to obtain success. Success is not a destination, it is a wheel. And if you're in the technology space, you definitely have to constantly be improving or else you'll get left behind. There have been tons of languages and frameworks that have been really profitable in a certain period of time and now have become obsolete. This is just the way technology is. So let's say you don't like technology. Should you move to a career change in this recession? And there will be a recession, and some people are calling for a Great Depression. Only time will tell. But if you want to change careers, this is the time to do it. And remember, you can always change careers at any given time. It's of course way harder when you're older, but if you're younger and you want to change careers, let's say you had a good job and then this recession happened, and then you want to do something else, now's the time to do it. One of the other things you also have to consider is that a lot of companies in the previous business cycle tended to overhire, meaning that there was a lot of people doing a lot of work when that work can be done by perhaps a third or maybe even a quarter of the amount of people. So let's say you had a good job at a company that raised $100 million in funds. It's possible that that company overhired, and if that company went bankrupt, perhaps that's the reason why they went bankrupt. So what that means for you is that your particular job was not as foolproof as you probably think it is. And the one thing that you need to always look at is, am I expendable? And in a company or any organization, you need to constantly ask that question. If you are expendable, you need to upgrade your skills immediately, because in the next big recession or downturn, or even just an adjustment, you might lose your job. I know this is a really gloomy subject. Losing a job is not fun. And sometimes it is your fault, and sometimes it isn't your fault. And sometimes things are in your control, and sometimes things are not in your control. You need to maximize the things that are in your control and prepare for the things that aren't in your control. And I have been down this road before. In 2008, that is the year I graduated, and there were literally no good jobs. In fact, I applied to 400 jobs between 2008, 2009, and 2010. It was a terrible time. In fact, the only jobs I got were outside of my industry, and it was not a good time. So I have been there before. So one thing I did was look at myself in the mirror and say, why is no one hiring me? Now, in retrospect, it was because the economy was terrible. Let's say in the next few years there is a bad recession and you personally are not getting hired. Perhaps it's the economy around the job, not necessarily you. Now, in my particular case, I think that was part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that I was not really given good advice in high school or university in terms of finding jobs, so I had a lot of bad misconceptions about work. And the other thing is that I was not as good of an entrepreneur when I graduated university as I am today. And furthermore, freelancing today is a lot easier than it was back then. Even though I got a lot of freelancing gigs, I probably could have made more money today because the infrastructure is so much better. But at the end of the day, I was constantly learning in those 3 years after my university degree, and I was constantly improving and making projects in my spare time and applying for jobs and getting better day by day, setting goals and making sure I achieved those goals. This is the one thing that I did. And once the economy picked up again, my business picked up, and it was absolutely amazing. So if there is a really bad recession, just remember that you can be out of work for other reasons other than you. But you always have to make sure that you have the most amount of power over your skills. So if you really want to upskill, you can check out Mammoth Interactive's products down below. The more money we get from the products that you buy below, the more content we can make. If you really like this channel, you can subscribe to Mammoth Interactive's huge library of content. We release 20 to 60 hours of fresh new content per month. We do everything from 3D design to game development to machine learning to web development and much, much more. It is a great deal. We have monthly and yearly options. If you are already a subscriber to Mammoth Interactive, thank you so much. Not only do you make this YouTube channel possible, but you make Mammoth Interactive possible. Our goal is to get to 10,000 paid subscribers per month. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more content we can make. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in another video.